35 viewers waiting.
Oh.
Okay. That looks like we are live on YouTube, and we've got people in our meeting as well. So hello, Tori. Hello, Emma. Hello, Else. I saw Sarah pop in earlier and then drop out again, so she might join us as well. And we'll give it a minute or so. I just wanted to make sure that we had the recording set up, that Penny could connect everything, everybody was here. It's always good to get started on time, because I know that, we're all project managers. I'll let Kim in as well. Right. We've already got questions coming in on the YouTube chat as well. Some ideas on workshopping with consumers. Okay. Hi, Kim.
Hi. Thanks for inviting us.
You're very welcome. It's lovely to see you again.
I missed you, so we had to come.
Excellent. Well, I'm here with Penny. Oh, I'm pointing out, but she's on my screen. She's over there. And we'll give it a minute to join the people who were in the waiting room, and then we will make a start, I think. Great. Okay. Was that a question, Emma?
Yeah, I just wanted to know because you're streaming it, whether you wanted cameras on or there was no other rules were the same as usual, or
you can turn your camera off or on. It's up to you. But we are streaming it, so if you want people on YouTube to see your beautiful face, then you can leave your camera on.
Might turn it off.
Fair enough. I can see echoes here as well. Right, my clock is saying 19:01. So I think that is time for us to get started. So, Penny, welcome.
Hello.
Thank you very much for being with us today. And I think I should introduce you, shouldn't I, properly to everybody who is here. So let me do that, because I know some of you might know Penny from previous books that she's written, because I talk about her quite a lot. The Virtual Leadership book, which is down here on the floor. Or not on the floor, on the bottom shelf of the bookcase. Don't leave books on the floor. But today we're going to be learning more about this one, facilitation skills, collaboration, and making workshops work. So Penny is a recognised creative collaboration expert, specifically for project professionals. She's got a business background as in business analysis and project and program management, and virtual and hybrid leadership as well. And she's the author of that book about making workshops work, and the virtual leadership book, and also the co-author of the latest Managing Successful Programs guidance from Axelos, the stationary office group that puts together the family of Prince 2 type standards. So in Penny's business now, she works with leaders and teams who are grappling with the challenges of all the virtual and hybrid things that we have to do in the world of work, and she tries to enhance collaboration and effectiveness with her skills and knowledge around how to work well in dispersed and hybrid teams. So I'm very happy that she's able to come and share some insights with us today. I think that's probably all I need to say, isn't it? It's just lovely to catch up with you, and I can't wait to hear more about what you've been working on and all the insights that you can share about making workshops work.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's lovely to be here. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different, which is I'm going to be sharing my slides, but through this window rather than doing a sort of Zoom screen share. So I will be in front of my slides or behind my book like I am at the moment. So let's just get that sorted. Yeah, let's do a little bit of an introduction. So here I am, and I think there's a little bit of slide missing behind me. I'll move that in a moment, but first of all, something you might not have done, but I talk about it all the time. But if you use PowerPoint ever, this is a really good trick, a very good tip, which is scribble on your slides. Makes them so much more interesting. So just go down to the bottom left-hand corner of PowerPoint, select pen, Typically it comes up in a red colour, so I like to change the pen colour to something a little bit more friendly, like this blue colour. And then you can write in your sides. So I'd like to say, hello everybody, it's lovely to be here. Why me, you might think? Why on earth do you have this strange person called Penny who keeps popping up on Elizabeth's things every now and then with another book? As you can see, there's a whole load of them. But yeah, I've been working on projects, and specifically tricky projects, for around about 25 years. Actually, I think it would help to get me out of the way, wouldn't it? So I'm going to do some technical wizardry and just remove me for a moment. How's that? Yeah, so let's just run through 25 years. And when I say tricky projects, this is what I mean. So it's projects that are risky. Yep. Projects with virtual teams, which I've been doing for a very long time. Ambiguous requirements, you know, the sort of thing that we have to face. And ones with disengaged people, when you can't easily get people to really be involved with what you want them to do. You know, you meet somebody in the corridor, or you used to in the old days, meet someone in the corridor and say, please come along to my project kickoff meeting. And they look at you with a horrified look and they run off in the opposite direction as fast as they possibly can. That's a sort of disengaged stakeholder that I am talking about. So I wonder if that applies to any of you. Perhaps put it in the chat or in the YouTube, in the chat there, just to say if that's true or not. And the reason I got rid of myself is so that I could actually show that I have actually done a teeny bit of work in New Zealand, and my husband's actually there. I think there's somebody in the Zoom from New Zealand. So it's lovely to see you. Kia ora. And I've also worked in various bits of Europe. I have spoken in the States, but not worked. I haven't done paid work in the States. And yeah, but generally I am based, along with Elizabeth, in this little island, which is not on this very stylized map of the world. Right, I think it's probably about time for me to pop back in. So yeah. Yay, it worked, which is good, isn't it? Right. So yeah, I have written quite a few books. This is the one that we're talking about today, Making Workshops Work, Creative Collaboration for Our Time, which is all about how do we creatively collaborate? How do we collaborate and work together with other people, whether it's in person, whether it's hybrid, whether it's virtual, it doesn't matter. And the book looks at all of them, as it says on that top little button here, for in-person, virtual and hybrid. It has that throughout. Yeah, Donna's saying this definitely applies to the projects that I manage. And Rachel says that it's 6 a.m. in New Zealand. Wow, that is determination and, you know, a real dedication, isn't it? Super. Okay, so yeah, I was one of the co-authors, one of 4 who wrote the latest Managing Successful Programs. This book, Virtual Leadership, virtual is one of the aspects of projects. I've been working virtually, at least in part, ever since I was due to run my first ever program. It was in 2001. There's a global kickoff meeting happening in New York. Very, very exciting. I'd never run a program and I'd never had a kickoff meeting in New York. The date on my ticket was the 13th of September, 2001. So if you want to put something in the chat, in YouTube or on Zoom, if you're on Zoom, just as to what the problem might have been, then we can have a quick peek at that. Yes, because 9/11 happened. So for me, I wasn't able to travel to, we were all grounded. It felt a little bit like lockdowns, although obviously it was tragic and it was something that happened in a split second. It didn't change the world in quite the way that the pandemic has. But we were grounded. We couldn't fly for 3 months. I had to do that program kickoff of my very first big global program. I had to do it virtually We didn't have 2 weeks together. We had to do lots of 1-hour sessions over much longer than that to get going. Yep. Ace got it. 9/11 happened. Super. So that's a little bit about me. In terms of projects, I see the way to do projects that works really effectively is facilitation. Being somebody who makes it easy for everyone in your project or program to do the best work that they can. And that works incredibly well with virtual leadership and with many other aspects of tricky projects. And facilitation of workshops is part of that. And I'll be going through that today. I thought it might be helpful to go through. This is what I call my magic 6. I'll just write that on there. Which is 6 magic statements, if you like, that will help you make any session clear. It's incredibly important to have this for virtual sessions and hybrid sessions. It works really well for in-person as well. So let's have a quick look at this. So what's the first thing we need to do? We need to say we are here to. And let's use this session as an example of it's not so much a workshop, but it'll be helpful. What are we here to do? We're here to learn how to make our workshops work. And perhaps we could add in project workshops at this point. We are here to learn how to make our project workshops work. So the next of the magic 6, number 2, is today we will. And the idea is to have 4 to 5 objectives. So these are the things we're going to cover. We're going to start off, number 1, with a bit of an intro, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about hybrid. So somebody brought that up earlier. I think it was Ace brought that up. And we're going to look at just a little bit about hybrid because a lot of people can see that coming up in their near future. We're going to look at planning. I would actually even say designing your sessions, because that's key to success. As project managers all around the world will know that planning and design is absolutely key. We'll then look at running your sessions and some things about what happens when your workshops go horribly, horribly wrong in the moment. And then we'll look at getting actions done, which is really important. Most project managers are probably pretty good at that. The rest of the world isn't necessarily, because meetings often happen. It's a sort of groundhog day of the same meetings happen over and over again and people aren't doing actions. And at the end, we're going to have some Q&A. So let's look at the third of the magic 6, which is our plan, ... which is what's the time plan. So we started around about, I've got that completely wrong. I was enthusiastic. 7 p.m, not 6. The good thing about writing is that you can change it as you go. We will have Q&A at around about 7:40, and we should be back to Elizabeth for rounding up at around about 5 to 8 to finish on the hour. The fourth of the magic 6. Who's doing what? Yep, I'm here to speak. Elizabeth is going to timekeep, so she's going to let me know when it's 1:15, when it's 1:30, when it's coming up to Q&A time. And please do participate. I know it's difficult when you're off on YouTube or you're in Zoom, but we do have chat. We have live chat on YouTube, and we have chat on Zoom as well. And in fact, that's part of how we work together. Now, for workshops, this is absolutely critical. Most people don't do this. But if you up front anticipate any problems and talk about how you'll handle those, then actually it means that if they happen, it's much smoother. So we're not anticipating problems, but we're thinking this time about how we're going to interact. So please do chat as we go. If you've got questions, you could put a queue at the front. That can be helpful for the lady who's collating all the questions. But I will be picking up the chat. I've got it visible on YouTube. For Zoom, I have to just pop out and in, but I can see those as we go along. The final of the magic 6 is what's next. So who's going to do what by when, your actions? And perhaps explain at this early stage who is going to do the follow-up. As project managers, you may well do that yourself, but perhaps other people might be involved. So I will get these slides with the annotations to Elizabeth, and I'll do that tonight. And then we would capture actions. If this was a workshop producing actions, we'd capture them as we went through. So any queries or comments on the Magic 6, pop those into the chat. So there we are. That is how to make things really clear at the beginning of a workshop. The next thing is just to run through these 3 aspects: in-person, virtual, and hybrid. Really important. Obviously, in person, we're quite used to. It's what we used to do most of the time, most of us, which is just being with other people in the same room. I used to say face-to-face, but people are using that term to mean video calls as well. So I use in person. Virtual is when people are separated from each other. And hybrid is when you have a mixture of the two. Like this picture here, you have 2 groups around 2 computers, group 1 and group 2. Group 1 together are in person to each other, but overall this is a hybrid meeting because they are virtual. Group 1 and group 2 are virtual. I see a question's come in from Paula, who's saying, do share what's the tool you're using to whiteboard as you speak. This is not Zoom. This is built into PowerPoint. If you go down to the bottom left-hand side of PowerPoint, you have a pen option and you can draw live and you can save them when you've finished your presentation. To be able to draw quite so neatly, you may say that it's not particularly neat. I'm actually using a simple graphics tablet. You can use a mouse. It's not quite as accurate though. The graphics tablets, it's not like a iPad or anything like that. They're about 50, 60 pounds or dollars. And it just means that you can write a little bit more neatly than you could if you were using your trackpad. Just to give you an example, if I just write with my graphics tablet, but if I just use my trackpad, so anyone, and I'm having to concentrate like crazy doing this, oh boy, it's going all over the place. But you can still do it. You don't need any special kit. You can just use PowerPoint itself. Right, so hybrid workshops. Here's a picture. I've got lots of pictures from the book that I'm using in this presentation, so I hope that'll be helpful for you. There are different types of hybrid. So A here is where you have one main room. And this is a big table with people sitting around it. There might be a bit more spaced out in these COVID times. And then you have other people joining virtually, somebody on a phone, somebody on a tablet, somebody on a computer. So that's type A. B over here is where you have the situation that we showed in the previous slide. So where you have several rooms. So you might have room 1, room 2, and room 3. Each of those have people together in person, but they are connected virtually. But of course, things are never that simple. There's another one, which is C, which is A plus B, which is when you have people dialing in remotely as well as having the different rooms dialing together. So I'm wondering if you would, could you let me know, are you A or B or C, or those hybrid workshops? If you do hybrid workshops, if you're involved in hybrid in any way, which of those are you using yourself? Do let me know. That would be really helpful because then I can comment on it a little bit more. I'm going to just come out of this just for a moment, just so I can catch up with what's happening in Zoom and see if there are comments that have come through in Zoom. Yep. Let's have a look. Lots of comments coming through. Yeah, Sarah likes the PowerPoint tip. Yeah, lots of people. A says, Elizabeth, yeah, dialing in remotely. Yeah, quite a few people have got a combination of A and B. Yeah, Rebecca says it depends on the project and the task. Ross says A and B. Elle says A. So the architect and the client at a construction site, engineers logging in via Teams. Emma's having A and B. Yep. So lots of different things. But hybrid, lots of people doing hybrid. It's good to hear that. Yep, and Amy's just said that her name is Amy, not Ace. So I'll try and remember that. Yeah, Heather's saying her hybrids are C. So quite a lot of different things going on. Thank you very much for your input. Right, let's nip back to those slides. Right. So, yeah, lots of C's going on. Okay, we have an outlier. Rachel is saying mostly in person, which is interesting. Others are saying, Denise is saying A, Donna is saying B and C. So a real mix. And hybrid, those of you who are doing it, you'll know that actually it's rather more complicated than either everyone being in person or everyone being virtual. And there's one big problem with hybrid. And this is going to be the only reference to football in the whole session. So here we are, the problem. If you don't do anything, hybrid doesn't give you a level playing field. So it's like this football pitch. And instead of being a nice flat football pitch, it's tilted. In fact, I'm going to tilt it that way so it looks the same as the line on the slide. It's tilted. And what does that mean? It means that the people who are in person have a massive advantage over the people who are remote or virtual. Why? Because they can pick up the nuances and dynamics of conversation much more than somebody who's virtual. They can glance across the room, see what's happening, they can pick up on things. They can get the feel and the atmosphere that people who are virtual just won't get. They have this level of sound, the quality of sound is so much better if you're in a room than if you're virtual with one of those horrible star microphone things in the middle of a board table, miles away from anyone. So if you're going to make hybrid work, and you may well have found this yourself, I'm just going to change the pen color over to red because it's so important and I want to highlight this. To make hybrid work, you need to bring this playing field, you need to make it level. Change it back. Too much red is not a good thing. So let's go back to blue. So you want to try and make it level. And how can you do that? Well, there are a few ways that you can make things level. There's one thing which is, can you buddy up? Buddy up each virtual person with somebody in the room so that they have somebody who can keep looking after them and keeping them up to date with what's happening in the room, that they can ask questions to if they didn't hear something. Another thing that really, really helps is to have everyone use the remote tech. So if you're using Zoom like we are today, you can have everybody logging in via Zoom, even the people in the room. That could be Zoom, that could be Teams, but just everyone uses the tech. Oh, actually, I need to get rid of myself, don't I? Because I've realized that I'm in the way. So hopefully that's better for you. Right, and then the final thing is you do this with name cards, or you can do it with something fun like cartoon cutouts, of a life-size cartoon cutouts of the people who aren't there. Have some physical reminder of the people who are remote, so that otherwise it's very easy just to forget about them and to go off into your own little meeting for the people who are in the room. Right. So I've talked a little bit about some of these challenges. What about you? Please do put your own challenges into YouTube or into Zoom now, because I have lots of slides, but I've got masses of flexibility, and I really like having the chance to flex what I say and to really make it make sense for you. I have lots of things, I can change things. Please do put your own challenges into the YouTube chat or into Zoom, and I will use those as we go through the rest of the session. Just going to have a look in the Zoom chat and see what's there at the moment. Yeah, Elizabeth's liking the empty chair. You can use an empty chair. Remember their names as well, though. So perhaps put a little sticker or post-it note with the person's name on it on the chair. Yes, we've got Caroline saying that the challenge is that people who are doing virtual get distracted with emails or notifications. Absolutely, that can happen even when people are all in the room as well, which is not great, but it does happen. So really, Caroline, we need to make things as engaging and as interactive as possible. Sarah's asking if everybody is senior in the hierarchy to you as a facilitator in a very hierarchical organization. Absolutely. That can be a challenge. I will show you a way around that, Sarah. Elizabeth, how do you get people to commit to using the Magic 6? You have to convince them that it's useful. If you just go in and use it to draw in their opinions and their perspectives and make sure that they are heard, then that tends to work quite well. Right. I'm going to head back into PowerPoint and see what I can come up with to help answer some of those questions. Nothing's come through on the YouTube yet. Oh, yeah, Amy's got something. She's been using Miro. Yeah, and Mural as well, and there are various other things as well that are helpful. Yep, standing back and seeing the whole picture is difficult. Absolutely. Right, so now we're going to dive into this planning your session, or perhaps what we should say is design. Or perhaps design and plan is fine. It's all about, and this is probably the key part to your sessions, your workshops, your meetings. If you can design them and plan them, and we know as project and program managers, you're going to be experts in planning and thinking about things up front, that will really, really help you. But what on earth do you need to design and think about? Well, we talked about the first step in the Magic 6. We are here to, what's your purpose? What's the point of your workshop? Get this sorted up completely at the very first stage. It drives everything else. What is the point? And the point is not that it's 2 p.m. on a Thursday. It needs to be something, what are you here to do? If there is no point, don't have the meeting, don't have the workshop. If the point is convoluted, clarify this purpose before you carry on any further, because the purpose helps you work out who should be in your workshop or meeting. And there'll be people who should be in, might be hard to get them, but they should be in. And then there are other people who should not be there, might want to be. But depending on the purpose, the point of your session, that will really help you divide out the people who should be there and the people who should not be there. And it might be that people should be in just for a bit. And they can just come into your meeting for a little bit and then they can leave. And if you've got your purpose clear, then it makes it much easier to convince people to come. And also, if you can tell them they just need to be there for a little bit, that can help. So, yep, of course I was going to talk about the Magic 6 again. This really does help. I designed it in 2007. Normally I change things, drop things within a month. But actually, this has really worked very well ever since. For me and for others, and for people who are quite skeptical. If you'd like, I can send you a card with this on. You can sign up for that through my website, Making Projects Work. In fact, it's down there if you're interested. Right. So there we are. That is the Magic 6. And is really helpful for designing. Right, something that nobody's mentioned so far, actually, is conflict. This normally comes up as a key thing. So perhaps you're all really, really good at dealing with conflict in your workshops. Or perhaps that was a little bit at what Sarah was hinting at, you know, the fear of getting into conflict with very senior people in a very culturally hierarchical organization. Anyway, I'm going to tell you a story, so please do sit back and relax. You may have heard this story before. It's the story of 6 blind men and the elephant. None of the blind men knew what an elephant was like. But they just happened to be together, and there was an elephant, so they went up in turn to the elephant to find out what it was like. The first one walked up to the side of the elephant and pushed against the elephant, and it was really quite solid. So he said, "An elephant is like a wall." The second blind man was a bit shorter, walked up to the elephant and found that it was like a tree trunk. And he said, "Oh, an elephant is like a tree trunk." The next blind man walked up to an elephant and found it was like a rope dangling from the sky. The fourth blind man walked up to the elephant and found that it was just like a big fan, you know, the sort of fan that people wave to move the air. The next blind man walked up to the elephant. He got a nasty shock because he found that an elephant was like a spear, so he ran away very quickly. And the sixth blind man also got a nasty shock because he found that an elephant was like a snake. Now, in the story, these 6 blind men argue for the rest of eternity. On our projects, though, we don't have the rest of eternity, do we? We don't. We have people with very different perspectives, just like the blind men and the elephant. And they might think, you know, that you just need the budget of a toenail for your project. But they don't see the whole picture. And part of our role as facilitators, as project managers, is to make sure that we get everyone to listen to each other and that we get the full picture of what's needed for our project. And that's what I see conflict as like. It's different perspectives. And once we see it as mainly that, perspectives about the process, how we're going to do things, and conflict about the content, what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. Obviously, there's some conflict that's relationship that actually you probably can't sort out in a project workshop context. So let's keep going. Oh, lots of brilliant things. How do you make things really clear? Amy asked about using Miro. You can do that, but you can just use some of these visual ways. I'm quite visual, you will have noticed. Yeah, you can draw models, but you can cluster ideas. This is something that a collaborative tool like Miro or Mural or Jamboard or various other ones, you can have ideas and you can pull them into clusters and then label them with an overarching idea. So that's a way of doing visuals without having to draw. You can use mind maps. That's how I drew the book out. You might sketch note, draw some pictures and show how it relates together. I mean, if you have anyone who likes drawing, use free drawing. Here's a vision picture for a project. This can work really well and it can engage those people. Oh, yikes. We have mass light happening here. Let's get rid of a little bit of that. Right. This is really helpful if you've got people you need to engage. Those people, Steph, who just want to look at their phones all the time, or virtual people who want to get emails and notifications. Just if you can draw live, really helps. If you have a moment a bit later on, we could have a go. Perhaps if not, ask me. And if you have someone who's actually a professional graphic recorder, it can make all the difference, but probably won't have that. Think too about where people are in the change. As projects, we deal with change. We all know about change curve. Now, not everybody will follow a curve like this, but it's likely that performance will dip as people go through change. And it's likely that people might go through different feelings. You know, starting off, it's fine. I'm fed up. I'm depressed. Perhaps I can work with it. It's happened and I can work with it. Think about where people are on a change curve. If they might be, they might not be. Whereabouts, if you're going through change, think about that and how it affects them. Another useful one when you're in workshops going through change is to think about, apply that Bridges transition model. If you haven't come across it, very useful one, which shows that there are 3 stages that you go through in any change: endings, neutral zone, and then beginnings. And what I found is in some workshops, you can have very senior people who are driving the change, who've had their ending already a while ago. They've processed everything. They've gone through the neutral zone and they are outside in the new beginnings, looking to the future, raring to go. And you may have some people who are newer into this, some staff members, for example, who've maybe only just found out about it, who are still very much in this ending stage. So if you're interested, if you've got, your senior people at a very different place from more junior people, the people driving it in a different place, think about that as well. It can make a big difference as to how people are in your workshops. Okay, perhaps it's a good idea now, we're about halfway through, just to have a bit of a stretch. Plan those in. Plan in breaks, stretches. You know, if you want to stretch out, oh, look, my arm disappears when I stretch out because I'm in a little square on the side here. But do stand up, move around if you want to. Plan in breaks. I can see Elizabeth's moving. Yay. Thank you for modelling that. If I stand up, all you'll see is my middle because actually I'm in a square and I sort of disappear. Yeah, there we go. Right. Another thing to think about planning is your process. What's a step-by-step process that you're going to go through, the different activities. I've got a picture here from the book, which is actually for a workshop that was a training workshop. But you can use this on your project and program workshops as well. I draw a big arrow. It shows the start. This one was from 9 till 4. I marked in lunch, you can see here. And breaks, there's a break, which is hidden behind all the post-it notes as well. I put in time to prepare. This was an in-person workshop and just put out the different tools that I needed underneath down here. And then I've got various little bits of post-it note and things to mark the different activities that I'm running. And overall, I've got the goal, the purpose of the whole day in the center of the goal of this arrow at the end. And I can have this on one piece of paper, A4 or A3, and it's really helpful to be able to see it all in one go and to be able to tick things off as I do them, and I can see it happening. Remember, if you've got questions or comments to go through, do pop them into the YouTube or the Zoom. Activities, what sort of things are activities made up of? Anything from getting started activities like introductions and so on. I'd say don't do icebreakers and energizers. Rather make all your activities really energizing and to perform that function. You might need to share. You might need to generate ideas. Perhaps you need to do some analysis, problem solving, reaching agreement and making decisions. And ending, something really helpful. Ending, think about what went well. That's not World Wide Web, it's what went well. And think about, I wish that. So you do a little tiny review at the end of every workshop. And if you apply those things, keep doing the things that went well and tweak the things that you wish that, then your workshops will get better as you go through. They'll get better and better and better. And they can't, they can't not do that. So think about a session that you're running soon and think about how you might do that. Right. Going to check the Zoom room and see how we're doing there. The budget of a toenail. Yes, can you tell I've been a real life project and program manager. Right. Yeah, we'll be looking at a few things for running your session. And I think when you're running your session, one of the most important things is this. I wonder if you know what this is. In fact, I need to move out the way a little bit. This is all about listening. So let me draw that up. This is a Chinese character for listening, and it shows that you listen with your ears, but also your eyes, your mind, your undivided attention, and your heart. Is this the sort of listening that you do when you're running sessions? Because it's really important that you really listen wholeheartedly to what people are saying and to what's happening in your session. Do you find workshops stressful? Let me get rid of me just for a moment so you can see this in its pure form. These are the things that a whole load of business analysts said made them stressed in workshops. As you can see, people is the biggest one. Listening, or perhaps other people not listening, conflict, hidden agendas, all sorts of challenges. And I made sure I covered all of those in the book, but we can't cover them all today. We just haven't got the time. So let's, I'm going to just pop me back. There we are. Right, and let's move on. Conflict we talked about, and we talked about the fact there are different types of conflict. It's conflict about the task, conflict about the process. Both of these really help by getting people to listen and understand each other's perspectives and getting the whole picture. Relationship conflict is a little bit different. If you have two people in your project team who just hate each other, you're unlikely to fix that by talking. In fact, you might need to move them into different parts of the project, or perhaps request that they work on different projects if you've got a long-standing issue that you just can't fix. With stress, and Elizabeth, I'm going to suggest we carry on a little bit because I have answered some of the questions as we went along, rather than having a really long extended Q&A. What I find a lot of project managers have is that they have a spotlight focusing down on them, and they think, I've got to be perfect when I'm running a session. I wonder if that's ever happened to you. Because if you have the spotlight on you, then especially in Sarah's position, when you have a very hierarchical organization with lots of senior people, you're going to feel massively under pressure and you're likely to feel stressed. Fight, flight, freeze, all of that stuff can happen. Your brain slows down, the thinking part of your brain, and you're less able to think and deal with all the situations that arise. So don't. Just move that spotlight. Have it shining on the group. Have it shining on the group. So that actually, if you make a mistake, like me carrying on writing underneath me, you all knew. But actually, when I noticed that, I didn't go, oh, it's a disaster. I just thought, well, they're seeing it as it is. How it comes out when you're running 3 different programs at once to try and have a good experience. So remember you're serving the group. And if there are any problems, you can ask them, what would you like to do now? What ideas do you have as well? We need to keep people engaged. I hope you found the things today have been useful, the visuals, the stories. That's what narrative form is. And it's powerful. I'm sure you can remember the date on my ticket and actually being able to see faces. You can see my face, but not everybody else's in this session because of the technology that we're using. Think about energy levels. What is the brain focus? What are people's bodies doing? If people are looking at their phones, as Steph says they do, then perhaps the energy is too low. Perhaps you're being a bit boring. Get them to move. Get people curious. These things will change the energy level. There are lots of other things you can do as well. When things go wrong, perhaps we should have a bit of a Q&A about mishaps. Send me your mishap or your complication, what happened, and see what suggestions I might have and what suggestions other people have got. So I'm going to leave that for Q&A. The final section is getting actions done. And actually, I think as project managers, you know this already. With most groups, I would go through how you need to capture, action number, who's going to do it. Penny Pullan is going to send the slides, annotated slides, to Elizabeth by the end of today. And leave space for Elizabeth to mark the status in the future. Also need to make sure you know how things will be followed up. So really, this is where we probably need to go to questions. Hopefully that's not too far off, Elizabeth.
I know we are good with time. Don't worry about that. That's been really interesting. Thank you very much. A couple of things that I took from that, the notes that I've made down, the two things that jumped out at me are forgetting about the icebreakers. Because when I plan a workshop, I'm always thinking, oh, well, we'll spend the first 10 minutes doing some kind of, what did you have for breakfast exercise? And I can see now that actually it's just much better to dive straight in, but make the whole thing better and start with something like the Magic 6 and then move into making sure that the activities and the conversation supplies that level of energy instead of having to fake it. It's because I worked in my last job, I worked with a lot of it's going to be very, I don't mean to stereotype a whole profession, but the financial team were not into doing all of that kind of, let's play with Play-Doh and make models and make a Lego model over here and all that jazz.
I brought you in, Elizabeth.
Thank you. And they were lovely people and we did things in other ways, but all of the standard icebreakers that I was bringing out for other groups just didn't work with them and they all fell flat. So I think that that's, just having the permission to not have to do those is great. And the other thing that jumped out at me was remember that you're serving the group, that actually it's not about you and your agenda. It's all about why are we here? What's the purpose? And that takes the pressure off the facilitator.
Yeah. And especially the how we work together, because if you've done that with a group and you've anticipated some of the problems, so what happens if we get to a point and we find something really interesting? Would you like me to suggest that, should we discuss scheduling another meeting and actually diving into that? Or are we going to discuss that? Or should I just keep to time? Do we need to get to the end? If you've had that discussion already, what happens if, how do you want to be as a group? One conversation at a time. And then if somebody very senior breaks that, you don't have to say, oh, yeah, you're a naughty person. You're not following my rules. You can just have a mirror and say, as a group, you agreed that you wanted to have one conversation at a time. I'm noticing that there are a couple of conversations happening in parallel. What do you want to do about that? It takes so much pressure off. That was that spotlight, moving that away and having that how we work together agreed. That was what moved me from being able to facilitate fairly small projects to running global programs and running things. I mean, there's one program that I ran that was with government ministers of several countries. I was just a project manager, but it worked because I wasn't using my own authority and saying, oh, yeah. I was just reflecting back and saying, you agreed you wanted to work like that. I'm not seeing that at the moment. And
where do we go from here? I mean, they change the rules and work in the new way, or I agree, we did say that. Let's go back to how we were.
And mostly they'd say thank you so much for actually keeping us to what we'd agreed, because most people just won't challenge.
Okay, that's a useful tip. Caroline's asked a couple of things. I don't know whether you talked about how people. Yes, you did talk about people getting distracted with emails. Just make the meeting more interesting.
Make it more interesting and engaging. That's the only thing you can do. You can't walk up to them if they're virtual and say, oh, yeah, I can see that you're looking at your emails. The other thing you can do is with virtual sessions is you can say up front in the how we work together, you can say, we're going to poll the group every 20 minutes, which means we're going to go around and ask you in random order, going to call out your name and just ask you for your reaction and your input. And if you know
Stay
that
awake.
roughly every 15 to 20 minutes, somebody could call your name, you could be first, and you'll be asked to just very quickly respond, you're less likely to get bogged down in your email. It works really well.
Yeah. And I think it also depends on the kind of people that you've got in the meeting in terms of, are they actually needed to be there? Because you said earlier,
Yep.
don't have people in for the whole meeting if you don't need them,
Absolutely.
just bring them in. So I find people get distracted in my meetings when I've invited them to sit through a whole hour, and actually they only need to talk for one agenda point, and it would have been better. Especially, it's so much easier now with virtual meetings. I can just ping them, dial them in at the right time, and then they drop off again. It's much less disruptive. And there's another question. What's a good method to have your stakeholders focus on the purpose of the workshop instead of focusing on the other 500 fires they're trying to put out?
Yeah, by having really effective meetings that are really focused and are really short, and making sure that everyone knows, if I have a process here that can get this done in 45 minutes, if I have your entire attention, and then that'll be that. But of course, if you prefer, we can have half concentration and we can carry on for an hour and a half. What would you like to do? It's your option.
I love that.
It's incredible. You say that and it just completely transforms everything. But can you see the spotlight is on them? It's not saying, actually, I'm going to run this. I'm going to run it. I'm going to run it with a rod of steel, and nobody's going to mess around. It's saying, this is for you.
Excellent. Yes,
that's the power of the spotlight.
Okay, the question that came in on YouTube from Rachel: how do you deal with a consistent saboteur?
That's interesting. How do you define a saboteur? How do you know they're a saboteur?
I think for me, it would be somebody who sits there and is huffing, is constantly trying to undermine your authority, trying to say, no, that won't work, that solution won't work. So maybe it's something to do with a very negative attitude to the topics that are being discussed. Maybe that speaks to some of the change stuff.
So are they really needed? Do you really
you just ask
them
to leave halfway through the meeting?
Well, you need to think up front. You need to know up front. If there's a consistent saboteur, at least they're consistent. So they're going to be a saboteur, and you plan for it. You design the meeting to constrain their saboteurness.
Okay.
You maybe bring them in for a short time where they're needed. There are all sorts of things you can do. But if they're a saboteur and they're going to be like that, plan it up front, design it out. Again, if you have a saboteur, remember, have all those, I was going to call them ground rules. Don't ever call them ground rules with your group, because they will revolt. People don't like rules. But if you say, how are we going to work together? What happens if this, and this? Talk about it. And then when that saboteur does their saboteur thing that you've already talked about and identified what you'll do, you can just reflect back. I've noticed.
So you don't recommend having a conversation at the beginning about ground rules? Let's co-create a list of ground rules.
Yes, co-create is good. Don't call them ground rules. Call them how we're going to work together. Let's talk about how we want to work together.
In this
What's going to be the most effective way for you to work to get what you need out of this?
Now you're saying that, it feels like I used to do ground rules all the time. It feels like ground rules are like so 2000, just so an old-fashioned way of kicking off your meeting.
Well, they are ground rules, but for goodness sake, don't call them that, because Elizabeth, you've got to these rules. You have to obey these rules. People like me just think, ooh, rules. Ooh, let's try breaking one and see what happens.
People like you. So I won't invite you to any of my meetings.
Actually, no, I'm normally quite good.
If
people are good. Yeah.
So Amy suggested that we call them norms.
Yes. I suppose norms. So your norms for your team would be how you work together. So your meeting norms. These are for a particular meeting, so they can change a bit. I think norms, I would think, are more longer, maybe team norms, or if you've got a series of meetings. Yes, I think it's good to say, how are we going to how are we going to apply our norms to this meeting now? So it's maybe even a little bit more specific.
We've got a few minutes left. So if anybody here with us in Zoom wants to come off mute and put their challenge to Penny, we can put her in the hot seat and see if there's something that you need some guidance with. Or if you're thinking about being brave enough to do that, which you absolutely don't have to if you don't want. Sarah's got another question. How much info about the workshop do you typically send out in advance? That's good.
In the book, I have a whole thing. Okay. At the end of chapter 5, I can't remember where things are in the book, which says the last stage of preparation, joining information, and what's in it. Oh, long list. The rationale, the purpose and the objectives as far as they exist, why that person is invited, the role that they will play, the person who's going to run the meeting and their contact details. Let them know what you'd like them to do or to be ready to talk about or do on the day. Things to bring with them, pre-thinking and preparation, the plan for the day, the start times, the breaks and the finishing time. I wouldn't go down as far as individual activities. If you're in person, how to find the venue and transport options. Obviously dietary requirements and things like that if you're in person. What to wear, useful if you're in person, perhaps from here up if you're virtual, it probably doesn't matter. Full information on virtual technology, contact details of someone who can help if people have any issues, especially important virtual and hybrid. Hints on your virtual meeting etiquette, so that how we'll work together, that you'll clarify in the session. It's good to have ideas shared up front, not as fixed rules, but perhaps as options. Details of how to check system settings for any virtual technology and if they need to get trained up in it, if they're not used to it. So fairly comprehensive. So hopefully there's an awful lot in here. I sort of brain dumped, but in a structured, organised, hopefully accessible way.
Thank you, Penny. That's brilliant.
Thank you for the question. It was, there's a lot there. I think I used to be really worried that people wouldn't understand the technology, but I've moved on from that now because the last year has forced us all to get better. So now I feel like I navigate between Zoom and Teams. And I was on GoToMeeting the other day. And it's like, this is like what I used to use 10 years ago. We're still using GoToMeeting. But it was, there's a lot of tools that we have out there that people are using. And actually it worked fine. It was actually very robust and stable. So it just was
I still use GoToMeeting.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with it.
It's good to have several as backups. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm just going to put up some contact details. If anybody, I need to get out of the way of my email. This really. Yep. So hopefully, if you want to get in touch now, do connect with on LinkedIn if you'd like to. And on my website, which you can see up there, if you sign up, I think there are a couple of stages. I will actually post you a little card with the Magic 6 on if you would like that, and some hints as to how to use it. And the other thing that I must say, actually, my publishers are doing this crazy thing. I don't know if they've done this with your books, Elizabeth, but they're doing a 99p 99 cents version of the book. It's normally $19.99 or in dollars $24.99. But on Kindle on the 12th of July, they're doing this thing to try and spread it far and wide. And I think, well, actually, I might as well join in and get excited about it because I want lots of people to have access to this. And it's on the 12th of July all day.
That's good that you said that because it's on my calendar for the 13th of July.
The launch is the 13th, but the 12th is the Kindle day. It's the day before the actual paperback launch.
Right. Okay. So I need to move that so that I can get my 99p Kindle version. Good. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, I would have been disappointed.
Oh, no.
Well, I would have just paid full price, no problem. But,
Yeah. I mean, it does seem a bit gimmicky, doesn't it? But I'm just happy to get it out there. The thing I've found with all these years of working with project managers, program managers and business analysts is that hardly anyone actually has any training in facilitation skills. And there's so many things like the things we've covered today. I mean, there's loads more. I could speak for hours, which I probably shouldn't. There's loads more. that would be so helpful. And they don't have it. So, and I couldn't find it out there. Certainly not with the virtual and the hybrid as well, which is why this book took a long time to write. It was 4.5 years from proposal to delivery. But it's because it was sort of heart and soul stuff, really.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. And as we are project managers, we tend to start on time and finish on time. And so I know as it's coming up to 8 o'clock here in the UK, that we should be bringing things to a close. So I would just wanted to thank you, really. Thank everyone who is here today and who's joined us to watch live, and to thank Penny for giving up her time to come and share those tips and suggestions with us about how we can do better meetings and better workshops. Because I think while we talked predominantly about sort of the workshop setting, so much of that I can apply to my normal, in inverted commas, meetings.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. So that's been really helpful. Yeah, thank you very much. And so people can connect with Penny on LinkedIn if they would like to. And I will remind people that they can get the book at a lovely discounted Kindle price nearer the time.
Super, that's great. Thank you so much. It's been delightful. It's been lovely to be here. Thank you so much for all your questions. And it's been a real boost to realize that actually these are real problems. These are things that will change project managers, program managers' lives every day. We're in a different world now, and more than ever, we need to design and run our workshops for creative collaboration. We really do, whether it's virtual, hybrid, or in person. So wouldn't it be wonderful if the lasting legacy of this horrible COVID time and lockdowns would be that actually we can really get to grips with workshops and we learn how to make our project workshops work.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you very much. And I'm sure I'll be in touch soon. And good night, everybody. And I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.